Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our special 3-part webinar series today, brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor Magazine and Wolters Kluwer. This second webinar of the series is called Driving Digital Transformation in Your Firm. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'm your moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to explain how CPE for this webcast works. Each of today's 3 webcasts qualifies for 1 credit of continuing professional education. If you plan to earn CPE for attending this session, you must stay with us for a minimum of 50 minutes. In addition, we will display 3 polling questions during the webcast. In each poll, you need to record an answer, as this is our verification that you are still watching the webcast. If you have any difficulty in answering the poll on your screen, you can post your answer in the Ask a Question box on your screen, and we will record it there. Please note that we can give CPE credit for multiple people at the same location. So if there are others in your office who would like to attend this event at the same computer, please have them join you now, and at the end of the event, we'll have you send us their email addresses so that we can issue CPE credit to them as well. At any time, you can enter questions in our chat area, which is the Ask a Question box provided on your screen, and our speakers will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation. Questions not answered during this broadcast will be addressed by the speakers afterwards via email. If you're planning on attending the 3rd part of this 3-part webinar today, you can find the link for that session in the session links box up at the top of your screen. So if you want, you can copy and paste that to another screen so you'll have it handy when this session ends. Also, I'd like to point out that Wolters Kluwer has provided a white paper and a brochure for you to download, and they are available in the resource links section on your screen. Today, we're joined by Colleen Knuff, Vice President Audit at Wolters Kluwer, Kathy Rowe, Vice President Tax at Wolters Kluwer, and Nate Brown, Vice President Firm Management at Wolters Kluwer. And now we are ready to begin.
All right, Gail, thank you so much for kicking us off today. I'm going to start off just kind of giving us a roadmap of the direction we're going today, the content that we'll cover. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we see as market trends and where we see the industry going. We hope that's in alignment with what you're thinking, but we also hope to really provide some insight so that it will help you plan for the future. We'd also like to make sure that we are helping you align your processes and your firm culture to embrace some of the technologies that we see emerging and other firms taking advantage of already. We're going to tell you how we're embracing and leveraging some of these advanced technologies like blockchain within our Validate product to help enable a faster, more quality-based driven audit. We're going to talk a lot about integration. We're going to talk a lot about data today so that we can help you address those staff challenges. That's the number one hurdle, the number one challenge that firms are facing today is making sure that they have the appropriate amount of resources to meet those demands that the clients are putting on them. And then we'll talk a little bit today, Kathy will bring us home and talk a little bit about the no-touch tax return, what that really looks like, and what technology will allow you to support that no-touch tax return. Before we get started, we'll do this throughout the presentation today. We're going to go ahead and have a few polling slides. So I'm going to kick it back to Gail for a moment to do our first polling slide for today's session.
Okay, thanks, Nate. So our first polling question that we'd like to have you answer is, what is your primary line of business? And the options are tax, audit, consulting, operations, administrative, or other. So choose the one that most aligns with what you do and click the submit button to send that answer to us. And we'll let this percolate for a few seconds so we can get some answers in here, and then we'll share the results with you momentarily. And also just remember, if you have any problem answering the question on screen, you can go ahead and post your answer in the Ask a Question box and we'll record it there. So I'd say just about 5 more seconds. Let's do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then let's see what our answers look like, which looks like just over 75% of our audience is reporting that their primary line of business is tax.
Great. Well, thanks, Gail, for helping facilitate that polling question. Really appreciate it. And I think we're going to really talk heavily about really those emerging technologies, but we'll absolutely be able to cater to the large tax presence. We'll able to incorporate some audit workflow in that as well. And then what I'm going to start kicking us off with here momentarily is that firm management piece that kind of holds all of those major business lines together, helps us facilitate that work to get the end deliverable out. Before we actually start to jump into firm management, what I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about today are those trends that we're seeing within the industry. I'll try to be brief here because I want to get into the content of how we're leveraging some of these trends or looking at some of these trends to really develop and execute on our roadmaps. But really the first trend probably isn't a surprise to most people that are dialing in today, is that shift to the cloud, that it's accelerating. At Wolters Kluwer, specifically with CCH Axcess, we've been in the cloud business for well over a decade. So we were kind of on the front line of this trend as we started to see it, start to develop within the industry. But over the last decade, we've seen an acceleration of that. Obviously, within the last couple of years, the pandemic has kind of put the gas pedal all the way down as it relates to the adoption of cloud. But really, we started to see the adoption of cloud as the ability to work anywhere, anytime. Giving you that ability to have virtual offices, to be able to give employees the flexibility to work from home or check in on vacation or a child's baseball game if needed. But really that was kind of the initial look at how we embrace cloud. The second trend that I'll talk about is really how we're starting to see that next evolution of firms leveraging the cloud is really that data exchange and reporting. Having your solutions in the cloud really allows us to be able to get to the data more readily and really able to consume and use that data to help run our businesses and really service our clients. So that growing requirement of give me as much data so that I can have actionable insights so that I can really run the business to the top level of its ability and really service those clients on the demand level that is needed. I look back when I was in practice 15 plus years ago, and I think about the demand a client had. And it was the idea of returning their email within 24 hours. If we don't meet that demand of seconds and minutes nowadays, clients will follow up again. Hey, did you get my email? So those demands are changing. And I think the cloud is really allowing us to get to the data and get those answers much more quickly. Advanced technologies enable that higher value work. So what we'll talk a little bit about today is the automation. I talked about the zero-touch tax return at the introduction of today's session, but really taking advantage of emerging advanced technologies so that we can get out of the monotonous day-to-day, no value add tasks. Think about putting information from one box into another, leveraging RPA so that we can remove ourselves from that process and then really focus on minimizing the tax burden of a client in the tax space instead of just the compliance of getting data where it needs to go. Having the machine do that so that we can add that advisory service. We call that working at the top of your license, or more simply put, doing what you went to school to do is really, again, minimizing that burden, adding that value. So as we talk about minimizing that burden, we talk about the increase in regulatory intensity and complexity. Things are happening at breakneck speed. We talk about the CARES Act. We talk about political turnover. Anytime we have political turnover, we're going to have change to the code. So that really puts a lot of pressure on CPAs to be able to deliver that advisory, related work, really minimizing that tax burden. There's so much that you have to keep on top of today. So we're going to talk today about some tools that will help you be able to do that. Okay. Going to move on and just really quickly highlight some of the areas that we're focusing in on as a corporation to take advantage of some of these more advanced technologies. We talk about machine learning, training a machine, training an application to be able to learn as you use it, feeding it scenarios initially, and then being able to correct it along the way, and it will get higher accuracy as you go along. We see that with CCH Axcess Financial Prep, being able to take a trial balance and automatically map it to the tax codes within the tax return. CCH Answer Connect, really having an intelligent way to be able to find information. CCH Axcess Engagement, again, leveraging that machine learning to get information mapped and coded appropriately. APIs are huge, being able to connect to data. I think of this as a pipeline of being able to connect one application or one source of data to another. So Kathy Rowe, who you'll be hearing from later, is really driving a CCH Axcess marketplace, really allowing our core solutions to be able to connect to other solutions. We can't be all things to all people, but we want to be able to connect you to those other applications that maybe aren't in our sweet spot that we're delivering. CCH Axcess Client Collaboration, an application in my portfolio. What we're allowing there is to be able to connect directly to financial institutions so that you can pull data down directly from those financial institutions instead of having to take a paper copy of a 1099, being able to pull that in, scan that in, and then digitize it again all over again, going directly to the financial source. Colleen, who you'll hear about later, has really helped us introduce CCH Axcess Validate. It's a tool that will help us in the confirmation process using blockchain, going directly to those financial institutions for that confirmation process. And a lot of times taking a multi-week process and turning it into multiple minutes, really giving you that time back and minimizing the back and forth. Predictive analytics, CCH IQ, really allowing us to be able to know what legislative events are coming and be able to quickly associate that with a group of clients so that we can advise with them on how legislative changes are impacting their tax burden. CCH Tagetik, Smart Insight, it's a tool in our corporate space on how we're leveraging predictive analytics. The same thing with Vanguard. I won't really belabor those points, but one of the items that I'd like to illustrate is we're a large global corporation. What we're trying to do is seeing how all of our partners within this organization, our sister companies, are leveraging some of these advanced technologies and seeing how they can fit in our customer base. That really allows us speed to market so that we are able to not have to recreate the wheel, just tweak it so that it fits in with our customer base. So predictive modeling is the last thing that I'll really talk about, really leveraging that in Tagetik and our Vanguard supply chain acquisition as well. Okay, so what I wanted to do is really kind of quickly get into my space in firm management before I turn it over to my colleagues to talk about tax and audit. So in firm management, one of the things that I'd like for you to do is keep top of mind, how do you achieve organic growth in this climate, this economic climate? And what I mean by that is if we think about the traditional CPA business, and I'm not, casting stones or arrows at anybody on the call, it's just the way that I've seen it historically back when I was in practice, is the CPA business is really kind of a volume business at times if you break it down, especially if you're talking 1040 workflow, is the more returns that you can have, the more revenue that you can drive. Obviously, we're running higher net worth clients to where we can leverage higher average return costs there. But again, the model primarily is the more clients that you bring in, the more revenue that you can grow. That's a really challenging business model at the moment because the more work that you have to do, the more clients that you have to serve, the more resources that you have to employ. Guess what? Those resources aren't readily available. There's not a huge influx of people joining the CPA profession. There's not a huge influx of people taking the CPA exam. So how are we going to drive additional organic growth if we have limitations on the number of resources? Our answer for that is really what we look at is growing through a cadence that you'll hear a lot, whether it be today or as you talk to other Wolters Kluwer partners, is we truly believe in a process that involves people, process, and technology. It's that triumphant, or that iron triangle, if you will, that allows firms to grow. And really, I'll be brief with this, is we do need people. We're always going to need people. As we talk about advanced technologies, people sometimes have that knee-jerk reaction of, if technology and robotic process automation, is that going to take my job? And the reality is no. We're always going to need that expert insight to be able to minimize that tax burden, to be able to service clients, to be able to have that relationship. But if we can leverage our people to use the technology, those advanced technologies, in a streamlined process, it will allow firms to grow. It will allow firms to provide better service. And it will really allow them to be able to elevate their game and their skill set. One of the most important things that you can do to retain people is empower them with additional knowledge and let them know that they're in an environment they're growing their skill set for the next challenge ahead. The one thing I will say as it relates to people, process, and technology is I want to focus on the process side. We're going to sit here and tell you about all this new neat technology that we're developing. You have to invest in the process. You can't simply take your old process, take on a new technology, and expect a different result. You need to look at when you adopt new technology as a way to really refine your process. Okay, so real quickly, one of the things that I want to do is early on I talked about the leveraging the data within a cloud-based platform. Real quickly, I've tried to articulate that or illustrate that here within a slide. I'll be very brief with this, but you can start to see in a platform approach how the data flows and how you can start to leverage that data. One of the key components of CCH Axcess is the Common Core database. That's the green box in the top left-hand corner that says CCH Axcess. So it doesn't matter what module or application you're in, whether it be practice, document, tax, workflow, it's all leveraging one common client database. That starts the flow of data. That's basic client ID, client information. But once we start to populate that, we can start to leverage that in practice to do time and billing. Once we start to set up that client for time and billing purposes, we can actually send them a client hub through CCH Axcess Client Collaboration so that we can start to work with them, aggregate source documentation. That's all being driven from that common client database. So they know it's going to the right email address. We know it has the right demographic information in there. Once we've actually established that connection with the client, we need to be able to track the workflow. Guess what? It's all tying together in one ecosystem to where we can track that workflow effectively. Now, as we kind of come down, we have to aggregate source documentation to substantiate our end deliverable down the road. So that's where CCH document comes into play. That document flows from CCH Client Collaboration. Maybe it hits CCH Scan and Autoflow, but it will ultimately rest in CCH Axcess document. I'll talk about Expatax at the very end. What if I don't have the resources to be able to do the tax workflow? And maybe I need to be able to leverage an outsource model. Guess what? It's all integrated within one platform. All of this information sits or will sit on top of a data lake to where we'll be able to populate the information from these solutions and all the data that we're aggregating along the way, put it in this data lake so that we can leverage that data lake down the road, so that we can pull information into reporting and visualizations to help us run our business from an analytical perspective. That data lake is critical. We're just on the start of that process of populating our data lake, but this is where we see the industry shift moving forward. Real quickly, I want to talk a little bit about CCH Axcess Workflow. CCH Axcess Workflow is our core workflow solution. We acquired this solution. It was previously called XEM. This solution, we believe, used to be the best in breed solution. What that means is it was the gold standard in the industry for tracking workflow. What our goal when we acquired the solution was to take it to the next level. And the way that we best found to do that was to make it part of the platform. So instead of a best in breed solution, it now becomes a best in process solution to where it can leverage integrations with other parts of Axcess. And then it can also be able to leverage that data lake concept where all of the information and the data is in one place to where we can start making actionable decisions based on data. But really the workflow solution, just very quickly, I know you see the highlights on the slide here, is going to give you visibility. Going to give you where is the work, who is doing it, when does it need to be done. It's going to really provide you that efficiency. Work you're going to minimize the risk of work sitting there. You're going to minimize the risk of missing a deadline. So the tool is, in my opinion, is evolving to be a digital workflow solution, is now just as core as a tax calculation engine at a firm or a trial balance system that helps us facilitate audits. So CCH Axcess Workflow, we're really excited about it. It's a solution we're investing heavily in because we know it's a critical business need for our firms to be able to track workflow. Okay, the next solution, client experience matters. That's what I will say first and foremost. How you do business with your clients is critical. It's very easy for clients to shop other CPA firms now. It's very easy for them to be able to be transient in how they do business and get their compliance work done. It's easy to break up because it's a remote environment now. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to empower you that think about how you do business. You'll have different flavors of clients. Some will want to do business the way that they've always do it. Come in, sit down, and have that conversation and look at paper documents. Others will really want to have a digital experience. Those are the same people that love digital chat when they're calling into Apple or their telecom provider. You're going to have different flavors. You need to cater to those. What CCH Axcess Client Collaboration is a secure hub that allows us to be able to facilitate a digital workflow with our customers. So what it means is it allows us to kick off an engagement by sending them a link to be able to engage us, facilitating an engagement letter. And executing that. We can send them a document request list, which is pulled from CCH Axcess Tax based on the information that populated the prior year return. We can leverage that information and having a document request list, pull that down into scan and auto flow directly from that application, do the preparation and review, and then ultimately deliver the return back to the client in the same digital hub. Right now, our client collaboration tool is a 1040 tool, but we're excited to be able to announce that in 2022, we're going to be able to deliver non-individual tax return workflow. So to be able to facilitate business return workflow for a partnership, a C Corp, an S Corp, that's the next evolution of this solution. But that's not where our vision stops. Where we see client collaboration becoming is not just a tax tool. We want it to be a centralized hub for all work that you do with your individual clients and your small business owners. That one hub that they go to do all work with you. It's their digital gateway into your firm. So the last two topics that I've got is it really facilitates that idea of evolving your firm. And one of the ways that we evolve the firm is through advisory services. So the compliance work is table stakes. We have to do it. We have to do compliance work. In a lot of cases, that's what our clients are originally coming to us for, is to do the tax return, to do the audit work so that they can get financing or whatever it may be. We want to really elevate our game, position ourselves as expert advisors, and we want to do that in real time with our customers with as little lift as we can, because I know I've lived you guys' life. I know that the seasons are compressed. We've got to get the compliance work out. We've got to meet those deadlines, but we have to plan effectively. And the time to be able to do that is shrinking with legislative changes coming later and later and more voluminous. It's hard. It's really, really hard to take a step back and say, how do I make my client's life better when you just have to get the return out the door? So our answer to that is CCH Axcess IQ. This is an advisory tool that we also look at as a business development tool for firms. So let me tell you a little bit about what CCH IQ does, and it follows this linear timeline here. Is what CCH IQ does is we have a research and learning arm of our business to where we provide insight and information for tax professionals to lean into so that they can do their job, to make sure that they're compliant. But we have an editorial staff that's constantly looking at legislative events. What they do is they give us those events in real time, even before they're enacted. And what we're able to do is we're able to build queries directly into CCH Axcess Tax so that we can see immediately when those legislative events are happening, what customers are impacted by that event. You don't have to build a query. You don't even have to know of the event beforehand. You log into a dashboard. It shows you the event. You can click on that event and you can instantly see which clients are impacted by that event. What that allows us to do is to start working with those clients to know that they've had a legislative event that's going to impact them and what that will mean for their end result taxable situation. We even provide a system-generated planning letter so that we can help you with initially reaching out to those clients to let them know. A couple of other really quick things is at the very end, the client-specific event dashboard. Why is this important? Well, we've seen some firms use this at a macro or a micro level. And what I mean by that is some firms are using this as a business development tool and looking at the total population of clients and then working that list down to go see if they can drive additional planning and advisory revenue. Other firms, what they'll do is at the end of the tax return process, they'll meet with their client either in person or over Zoom, pull up their dashboard and say, hey, these 7 events impacted you this year. Did you have any idea about these events? Let me talk to you about those events. And the best part about that is that partner or that manager didn't have to do anything before that client came in and sat down. The dashboard populates for them. As long as they have a little bit of actionable intelligence about that event, they can facilitate that conversation very easily. We've been told by firms is this is very impactful to their client retention rate. Okay. The last thing that I'll talk about here, just very briefly before I turn it over to Colleen, is the idea of creating capacity through strategic outsourcing. So we have a outsourcing offering to where we provide both domestic and international outsourcing. Why do I differentiate between the two? Is because there's certain requirements if you do go offshore that you must facilitate. You need to tell your clients and have them acknowledge that you are sending their information offshore. But the appetite for outsource has skyrocketed. Well, why is that? It's what I talked about earlier. Is there simply not enough resources coming into the CPA space to meet the demand of the client work? There's too many returns to get through in a compressed busy season. So that's one. So some firms feel good about their resources. They've got a great culture. They've got great tools that they're using. They've got longtime employees that aren't leaving. Firms are taking advantage of outsourcing so that they can raise their game as it relates to advisory services. Get rid of some of the low-hanging fruit type work that we're really coming up against the decision of, do I just get rid of those clients or do I figure out a different way to service those clients? And that's outsource. So those are the two different flavors. Just trying to get through the work or shifting to a different type of work at a firm. But we've seen this massive interest and adoption of outsource within the industry. And with our offering alone, we've doubled our outsourcing capacity. But what we wanted to really let you guys know is we're here to talk through your outsourcing strategy with you. The only thing that I'll leave you with is if you are interested in outsourcing, I would say bring that to the top of the table today within your firms, because honestly, we have capacity challenges as well. We've been able to grow through tech-enabled initiatives, really automating a lot of the process on our side. But we're still going to make sure that we put a cap on the number of returns that we do, because quality and turnaround time is the most important thing to our outsourcing business. And we really want to make sure that we're getting returns back and at that 99% quality metric that we've held ourselves to. So if you're interested in outsourcing, let us know, but make sure you bring that to the table quickly because we are running low on capacity as we move forward. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Colleen Knuff to talk to you guys a little bit more about what she's seeing in the audit space as it relates to emerging technology and what Wolters Kluwer is doing to really stay in front of that. So Colleen, over to you.
Thanks, Nate. Just like firm management, we have a lot of exciting things going on in audit, and I'm just going to cover some of the highlights, as I know many of you are going to want to know what's going on in tax as well. So for firms who are involved in audit and have audit clients, you'll know that traditionally we've taken more of an integrated approach. We have a suite of products in an on-premise fashion that are used to conduct audits. But knowing that a shift to the cloud, the use of emerging technologies, and really needing real-time data exchange and reporting is being key, we're making a move to a data-driven audit approach in the cloud. And so you'll see that there's a number in the middle of that slide. There's a number of applications that help us achieve that data-driven audit. And then to the far right, back to that data exchange concept, is we know that we need to be able to facilitate the movement of data and exchanging data with other products in the portfolio like CCH Axcess Tax, Workflow, and just generally speaking APIs so that your firm can be interconnected. So the road to a data-driven audit in the cloud for us is not new. So you can see from the timeline across the bottom, we have a number of products that service firms that have been in the cloud since 2008, starting with financial prep, which really helps early on in the business tax return part of the process and passes data across to CCH Axcess Tax. But Knowledge Coach, which is how the audit program tailoring is a part of the process, was introduced in 2019. Validate, which I'll talk about in a minute, for bank confirmations was just introduced late last year. And then in April, we released the early adopter version of CCH Axcess Engagement. So you can see that, to date, we've moved much of our product portfolio to the cloud, taking advantage of those technologies and ensuring that we've got some real-time data exchange and collaboration that maybe didn't exist in the on-premise world. And we're not finished there. We will continue to have releases of engagement, migration for existing PFX customers, and then more of that data-driven approach, which I'm going to give you a bit more explanation on in a few minutes, and then rolling this out as a global product as we move into the next couple of years. So just a couple of things about CCH Axcess Engagement. All of these individual pillars that make up a data-driven approach, as I mentioned, it's out in early adopter. But some of the critical things in here are some of the deep domain knowledge that goes into the application and understanding your workflows. So links to trial balance amounts and things like trial balance linking, consolidations in real time, the ability to import and group accounts using machine learning as a mechanism to take advantage of those advanced technologies and really ease the burden of some of the tedious tasks that are involved in the process. Copying engagements, being able to use them over and over again, the roll forward process. And as I mentioned, linking some of this information through to CCH Axcess Tax for your tax returns. We've really put a lot of emphasis on ensuring that workflows actually go through the CCH Axcess platform and that you're getting the best efficiency you can out of the whole process. We're really excited to have introduced CCH Axcess Validate late last year. So this is where we're using blockchain technology to speed up the process of doing bank confirmations. So the idea that in sort of 5 clicks in 5 minutes, you can actually achieve what traditionally takes a much longer period of time in a much more secure fashion and getting back more data than maybe you had been getting back previously. So transactions, balances, statements, those are all possibilities. The best thing about Validate is its ease of use and the fact that the trust quotient between you, your client, and the bank is all being managed in the background so that it makes it really easy for you to conduct this part of the process and get valuable information back very quickly. Teammate analytics is another big part of our data-driven approach. We have over 150 tools, 200 analytics tests covering many of the audit areas that can be run in just one click. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at Teammate analytics, I would encourage you to reach out and take a look. There's it's taken the best of the analytics processes and tools that we know exist in the marketplace and put them in a tool, Excel, that every auditor is familiar with. So this really takes the burden of having your core group, your subject matter experts have to do everything for every audit, and gives the opportunity to have all auditors participate in the process because the tool is familiar and easy for them to use. Additionally, we start to string together some of these tools. So things like transactions that come out of Validate can feed into a module or an analytic tool, an algorithm inside of Teammate Analytics to do your cash, your bank transactions and your subledger and cash, do the matching and identify transactions that are maybe out of sync with each other or maybe don't, aren't quite matched up in a whole population test versus trying to do sampling. There's numerous ways that you can use Teammate Analytics. Here's a few examples, anything from your risk assessment and planning steps, doing some of the key ratio analysis, year-over-year trending analysis, all of that information that informs your audit approach through to analytic procedures, mining for fraud and anomalies, still selecting samples where that's appropriate and necessary, control testing, and obviously substantive test of details. So lots of opportunities to use the tool in various different ways and to improve or increase your use of analytics over time in the audit process so that we're relying more on the data and still applying our professional judgment, but having that data sort of back it up. And to just give you a really high level understanding of what we mean by data-driven audit, there's sort of 5 key steps to the process. The first step in the process is the ability to import data. One of the biggest challenges we know firms have is the ingestion of data, but not just the standard trial balance data. We're looking at how can we help you ingest other subledgers and other types of data, validate that data, make sure it's in a common data structure so that we can actually do all of these analytics a bit more in an automated fashion and make that available to the next steps in the process. Having that feed the risk assessment and ensuring that the data as it feeds the risk assessment isn't just making suggestions on your behalf or making decisions on your behalf, but informing the process. And in doing so, making sure that more visualizations are available so that it's a little easier to consume all of this data and understand what the analytics are trying to tell you. So you can see from some of the bar charts, things like, differences year over year, how a business is growing or improving. Some of this is around sort of, transactions, cycles of transactions, and the cyclical nature of them. It just gives you a little bit more rich information as to how we can start to tailor our audit program to best suit the client. And speaking of which, obviously the audit program design is a key part of the data-driven audit approach. Not just ensuring that we're tailoring the program, but that's being linked back to accounts. It's being linked back to risks so that when you go through peer review, one of the most common findings in peer review is that often these things, there's no clear linkage between them. And so it's hard sometimes to decipher how a risk has actually been managed throughout the rest of the audit. This just ensures that that is like a much more clearly defined so that it's easier for peer reviewers, but also for a partner to follow. Obviously, doing data-driven procedures. So automating as much of the substantive testing of details and analytical procedures as possible using data analytics and some auto-generated samples is another example of how a data-driven audit approach will work. And then visualization and documentation. We often think of a data-driven approach as being purely around analytics. And one of the things we know that we need to do is think more holistically about the data that we've captured. So thinking about that linking comment that I just made, knowing that we have risks, those risks are linked to accounts, whether they're material or not, and the procedures that are being performed against them. So it gives you a sense of are we under or over auditing, and giving us a much better picture as to how our audit goes. And for anyone who's interested, I know many of you are tax professionals, but for those of you who are audit professionals that would like to know more, we have a prototype that we're happy to share with customers. So you should feel free to reach out and we'll make sure that we have a connection around that. And Gail, with that, I'm going to turn this back over to you because I know we have another polling question.
All right, thanks, Colleen. Our second polling question for this session is, how integrated are your technology solutions? And your options are not at all integrated. We're entering the same information in multiple systems. Partially integrated, we have some solutions that are connected, but not all of them. Completely integrated, we enter information in one system and it updates everywhere. Or what do you mean by integrated? So please go ahead and click the one that most applies to you and then click the submit button. And we'll see how our audience replies to that. So, and we can leave this up for a few more seconds. Looks like the majority of answers coming in, though, are saying partially integrated. Unfortunately, very few have replied, what do you mean by integrated? So that's a good sign. All right, let's go ahead and share those results with our audience, and then we're going to turn this back over to Kathy to talk about integration and API.
Great, thanks, Gail. All right, so this perfect segue to the next part of our presentation, which is really all about the Open Integration Platform. So the Open Integration Platform is using what's called an API to have that connectivity and integrate systems. So it's using the API, which one of the questions I was asked was, what does that mean? And it means it's an application program interface. It means that you can make these connections so that data can flow between the systems, and you can really find the efficiencies, which is, I know, a goal for all of the tax professionals and audit professionals in the virtual room today. So as part of our strategy at Wolters Kluwer is to continue enhancing these APIs and adding new APIs for both audit, tax, and firm management solutions to make them available to firms and make sure we have the services for you, as well as having a marketplace where we have vendors that we work with our core solutions. So for audit, tax, and the firm management solutions to really help accelerate those efficiencies and accelerate those integrations. So we do have 8 vendors that are now in our marketplace that work with our Axcess solutions, our CCH Axcess solutions. So some crypto vendors, some time and billing, so several different ones to look at. And the whole goal here, again, is to look at how we can automate the entire tax workflow. So you can see here with all the colorful boxes is that we do have APIs that are available that we've built the Axcess platform on top of the Open Integration Platform to enable you to find these efficiencies. So definitely a good time to get educated in terms of what is an API, what do we have available, what staff do you have on your team to start availing of these? We did just launch what's called a developer portal. So this is for the IT person in your firm to be able to come in here and get all the latest documentation of our APIs, to really understand, the documentation again, which is what I just said, the sample language, to be able to test them in the browser. We're also launching a sandbox as well for you to do the testing in. So that is available now. You can go out to our website, use your Axcess credentials to log in. So now for our tax portion specifically, again, let's first reflect on a lot of positive things from this past tax season. I do want to share that we have had a pretty significant increase in number of CCH Axcess firms and users using our platform, which is great because we're able to further invest and further leverage the successes from all the firms. As Nate was mentioning, with outsourcing, we have a solution called Expatax. Again, huge increase here, as we know everyone's facing staff pressures, and we have really high quality with 99% accuracy. We've been able to deliver our tax forms to you. We've seen an increase there. We've delivered more than 4,000. And to just build on the increase in 17% in users, we have 90% of the top 100 firms do use CCH Axcess. Now, having talked about tax season success and even some of the forms, I do want to talk about what this means in terms of moving forward, and what does tax season success mean as we look at next tax season? So a few things. One is, I'll just touch on forms since we were there. We want to accelerate getting our tax forms to the market with speed and with quality. So we've stepped back and we've really looked at the quality to make sure that it's top notch and you can rely on us as being the experts. We want to increase the speed because we know that the legislation is continuing to change at a fast pace, be more complex, often happen through tax season. So we're really investing in this area to make sure that we can accelerate that. We are also investing in our support team, again, both at a human resource level as well as the technology to make sure that you have the support resources that you need and can get the answers. So as an example, this year, a few things you can look forward to is having the support community directly in the application to be able to have in-application micro-learning to help you, to really enhance our chatbot, to get the better information on our tax forms directly in the application. So lots coming there. Another element of tax season success is making sure we can improve our communication to you. So in addition to the support community, we are introducing what's called an insider program where we can really accelerate our communication with you in terms of having webinars called Tax Talks. We've launched various advisory boards to really build on the customer validation that we always do. We're looking at our support site and changes we need to make there, how we're delivering our software news. So several different things that we're focusing in on there. And then, of course, the other element of tax season success is just the overall stability of our platform. We have focused on that significantly in the last several tax seasons. This will continue. We have a series of work that we do to make sure that we're ready for tax season. Our goal is to make sure that we have solid filing deadlines with the performance that you need. So again, we're really proud that we had solid filing deadlines this year. That will continue. We will also want to make sure that we reduce the amount of time that it takes to get the tax content updates out to you. So really saving time on those maintenance windows. Other parts of our strategy, in addition to tax season success, which is important, is really making sure that we innovate and ideate so that we can really build on the efficiencies that you need. So we are evolving tax to be in the browser. So you're going to start seeing some elements of that. I'll show you a few examples in a second here. It's really to make sure that we can introduce the innovation so you can work faster, as well as being able to work more collectively as a team with some multi-user capabilities. We also want to introduce the speed to preparing your tax return. So that could be connecting data and documents directly at source. It's a new approach to how we can do K1 automation. It's being able to set up templates at a work paper level to import into tax directly. And then, of course, we'll continue to enhance our APIs as we were talking about, and make sure that we have the right tools to support firm merger and acquisition activities, since we know that's very prevalent right now. So just to show you a few examples of what evolving tax for the browser looks like. So this is what's called a return dashboard. So this is launched right now for early adopters and will be available for everybody in our July release of this year. A few things to call out. It's going to be turned on, no additional charge for all of our 1040 customers. And it's going to have a few interesting features that will really help both the tax preparer and the reviewer. So in the bottom left-hand side, you can see a complexity rating. These are different attributes that tell you how complex the tax return is. We gathered these by working with firms directly of all different sizes to see how we can help you understand where you needed to focus as a tax reviewer. So you can see that it will show you a complexity rating here. This, again, is available in July. of this year. As a phase 2 to this, so in subsequent years and time, you'll see that this will be customizable. You'll be able to feed this and have it talk to other CCH applications, for example, doing resource allocation and scheduling. So more to come there. This is really the beginning. The other thing to call out is the real-time nature of this e-file status. So before you had to wait about 15 minutes for you to get the latest e-file status to make sure it was accepted. So as a tax preparer, you could just move on to the next tax return and not worry about having to come back and check the status. So this is near real time now, so you can put everything to bed and move on. The other elements are just key data points with respect to the tax return, like the 2-year comparison, the diagnostics, which you can drill down into, just having everything in one place. So again, as we continue working through this, you'll see this elements of this work with CCH Axcess workflow as well. So if we take a look at what's coming next in terms of browser-based tax, you'll see a new return manager. So this is what's coming next year, and this will give you a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to manipulate the different views, to do sorting, filtering, and just ultimately work with larger data sets. So again, this is going to be embedded directly within CCH Axcess Tax, and this is step 2, and will be available as we move into next year. Ultimately, though, where we are going with tax is moving towards a zero-touch tax return. So our goal is to be able to connect CCH Axcess to the source documentation and the source data to be able to gather this in for tax customers, whether it's through client collaboration or direct from CCH Axcess, so that you get your W-2s, the K-1s, the 1099s, and can feed it in, obviously with client authorization. So you're going to start seeing different elements of this as we move forward. The last thing, just to kind of leave you with some thought leadership, is cryptocurrency. So this is becoming, again, more prevalent over the last number of years as people have started really dabbling in this, and it's only going to continue as businesses start working in the metaverse, which is a great thing for you to add to your next set of research topics. But the IRS is going to be doing audits, and they are doing audits and really wanting to make sure that people are capturing the right capital gains, the losses, that the 1099s are accurate. So I definitely encourage you to go out to our different resources available, get educated, and then look at the vendors that we do have on the marketplace and understand how they work with CCH Axcess, and talk to your clients about it as you move forward. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Gail for the final polling question.
All right, thanks so much, Kathy. We do have one last polling question for today. And that question is, would you like more information about the technologies you've heard about today? And your options are, yes, I'd like more information for purchase decisions we are considering within the next 12 months. Yes, I'd like more information to prepare for future decisions. I'm not currently considering new technology, but I am interested in ways to improve our business. Or thanks, but I'm just here for the CPE. So choose the answer that fits best for you and click submit. And while you're doing that, I'd just like to remind you all that if you have any questions about CPE, you can contact me directly at gperry, G-P-E-R-R-Y, at cpapracticeadvisor.com. And if more than one person watched this webinar with you, you can request CPE for that person or those people by sending me the name and email addresses of each additional attendee. That's gperry at cpapracticeadvisor.com. We're going to display a post-event evaluation on the screen. That's an optional evaluation. And you should look for your CPE certificate in your email box. Look for a message from CPA Practice Advisor. It'll be later today, I believe. I'd like to thank you all again, but also mention that if you're planning on dropping over to the third session, the link is in the session links option on our screen. And we may see you there. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Wolters Kluwer. And thanks, everyone, for your time.
Yes, thank you, Gail.
Thanks.